Good morning. The first item of business today is general questions, and our first question from Rona Makay.
Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what its response to the UK Government's announcement that universal credit rollout will be delayed until 2024.
Minister Christina McKelvey.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government is deeply concerned by the UK Government's decision to delay the managed migration of people onto universal credit until 2024. This latest delay will mean even more people having to move to universal credit when they have had a change in circumstances, and even fewer having a managed move which provides transitional protection to those who are not, and protection so that they're not made worse off. It's the second time this has happened, and instead of penalising people, the Department for Work and Pensions should use this delay to fix the flaws in this discredited system, including scrapping the two-child cap and the abhorrent break clause, ending the debt and poverty-induced 5-week wait, and fixing those allowances for those people in Scotland.
Rona Makay.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Delaying universal credit rollout to 2024 means more people will lose out in financial protection, saving the UK Government money at the expense of those who really need it. Universal credit has already inflicted hardship and increased food bank in my constituency. Does the Minister agree that the DWP must start providing transitional payments to anyone moving to universal credit, no matter if they're part of natural or managed migration?
Minister.
Yes, I do. The UK Government should take responsibility for the shambles that is universal credit, now 7 years behind schedule. It's absolutely critical that the Department for Work and Pensions immediately starts making these payments for everyone moving to universal credit in order to protect people's incomes and prevent even more hardship and poverty. And it says it all in Rona Makay's question, Presiding Officer, when the UK Government say they will save money through this method. Well, they're not saving people's lives and livelihoods by treating them the way they're treating them.
Question number 2, Neil Bibby.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it will take to improve employment levels and economic growth.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
Our employability service, Fair Start Scotland, is delivering personalised support to 16,130 people, helping them towards and into work, with 4,126 participants starting a job since launch in April 2018. Following the publication of No One Left Behind, we're working with local government, the third sector, private sector to develop an employability system that builds on existing services, improves alignment and integration with other support, and which are designed and delivered around the needs of those using services.
Neil Bibby.
In 2010, the Scottish Government boasted that it could create nearly 30,000 jobs in offshore wind energy by 2020. Today's Daily Record reports that that actual number is closer to 1,700. We agree the UK Government needs to reform the subsidy mechanisms to demand greater UK content in supply chains. But can the Minister outline what capital investment the Scottish Government has made to ensure that our fabrication facilities are fit to win work that is being sent to the likes of Indonesia and China? And is the Scottish Government's proposed cut to the workforce skills budget a sign that it is giving up on talk of tens of thousands of jobs?
Minister.
Well, no, it certainly isn't, and I'll come to that latter point in a moment. But of course, when this government was needed, we stepped up to the plate. When BIFAB was in trouble, we were there. We intervened, we helped save that yard, and of course we're undertaking work to support the Scottish supply chain. In answer to his last point, I would urge Mr Bibby to cast his eyes a bit wider across the budget, because he's looking at things in isolation. He's failed to mention that our Fair Start funding is up in this coming year. He's failed to mention that in the skills and training budget lines, employability funding's up, the skills budget up, we're maintaining educational maintenance allowance. He's forgot, of course, to mention there will be over £22 million extra in higher education this coming year. He's forgot to mention that further education is increasing by over £21 million this year. And he's failed to mention, he's singularly failed to mention our new parental employment support fund of £7 million. So we are investing in our workforce. I would have thought that was something Mr Bibby would welcome.
And Willie Cox.
Thank you. Innovative approaches to employment support are always essential to reach people who are furthest away from the labour market. Can the Minister provide information on any new ways in which the Scottish Government is looking to support people into work?
Minister.
Well, of course, I've just mentioned our Parental Employment Support Fund, which is a new approach to supporting a particularly vulnerable cohort of the population, to support them into employment, to tackle child poverty, something that Aileen Campbell is, of course, leading on. This is a cross-government approach. In terms of the wider approach, we're building on Fair Start Scotland, which is designed around the individual, a person-centred approach. The work we're taking forward in tandem with local government through the No One Left Behind agenda to better align the range of employability support with other public services, such as housing, such as social work, such as the criminal justice system, such as the health services, all designed towards that end. That's something this government is taking forward, and that's something that will make a difference to the people of Scotland.
Thank you. And question number 3, Stuart Stevenson.
To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the UK Government's proposed legislation on fishing and farming and the impact of this on Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary Fergus Ewing.
I welcome that DEFRA has chosen to work with us on the Fisheries Bill. The revised version is an improvement on the original draft and largely recognises, Presiding Officer, that fisheries is a devolved matter, although we still have some significant concerns in relation to the setting of fishing opportunities and failure to deal with the sea fish levy. On the UK's Agriculture Bill, we have serious concerns that there are provisions which impose unwanted policies and rules in areas of devolved competency, and that the bill makes no commitment to preventing post-Brexit trade deals from allowing the import of food that's produced to a lower standard than those legislated for Scottish farmers. Across both bills, I'll fight to ensure that the UK Government provides adequate funding for all sectors, and I will continue to resist any attempts by the UK Government to grab key powers from this Parliament that impact on fishing, farming and food production.
Stuart Stevenson.
Relatively good news on fishing then, but on farming, abysmal news, building on yesterday's announcement that will be denied access to labour from other countries, essentially. Can the Cabinet Secretary assure us that he will make this entire Parliament's view that we will brook no removal of powers related to farming, that farmers across Scotland have expressed grave concern about UK policies? He'll continue to champion the cause of farming in Scotland with those at Westminster who wish to see it diminished.
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, I will. Yes, I have. And yes, we did on Monday of this week at the Interministerial Group meeting, some of which took place in Northern Ireland with the welcome return of the administration there. And we will take every opportunity to protect the devolved competence and the powers of this Parliament, which, as Mr Stevenson says, are under attack from the Westminster Government. And that surely is unacceptable to all members of this Parliament.
Question number 4, Alex ColeHamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reported extended waiting times for general colorectal surgery in NHS Lothian.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
Under the Waiting Times Improvement Plan, we've made an additional £16.5 million available to NHS Lothian in this financial year. Since the summer of 2019, NHS Lothian have progressed a programme of work to improve waiting times within the colorectal department, including improving patient pathways, recruiting additional staff and running additional evening and weekly clinics to address the long waits.
Alex ColeHamilton.
To the Cabinet Secretary for her reply. In July 2018, my constituent, Margaret Simpson, was injured in the Western General when a colonoscopy ruptured her bowel. She had to undergo emergency surgery. She had part of her bowel removed and was fitted with a stoma bag. She was placed on a waiting list to have corrective surgery that would have seen the bowel repaired and the stoma removed. She was sent home with pre-op medication to take in advance of the planned operation. In March last year, she received a letter apologising for the fact that she had not been seen within the 12-week waiting time guarantee. At Christmas, she had to throw out the pre-op medication because it had passed its use-by date. She is still waiting. Margaret's life has been on hold. Given that this is an injury caused by the NHS, does the Cabinet Secretary believe that nearly 2 years is an acceptable time for Margaret to wait for the NHS to make things right?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm grateful to Mr ColeHamilton for his supplementary and the specifics of the case that he is dealing with. No, I don't think that any wait that is longer than necessary is a sufficient answer and response from the board. If Mr ColeHamilton would care to give me the details of the particular case that he is talking about, then I'm very happy to look at that further and to see if NHS Lothian can move more swiftly to deal with Ms Simpson's particular situation.
Question number 5, Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will fully fund the recent teachers' pay settlement to be delivered by councils in 2020-21.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government's agreed contribution to the cost of the teachers' pay deal for 2021 is fully funded. Local authorities will receive a funding package of £11.3 billion in 2021 through the Local Government Finance Settlement. Included in this is an additional £156 million for the teachers' pay deal.
Brian Whittle.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer, but I was contacted by my councillors in East Ayrshire who tell me that the settlement they have received from the Scottish Government means they will have to cut their discretionary budget by £2 million to fund the Scottish Government's extra commitments, such as the teachers' pay settlement. Cabinet Secretary, the Scottish Government have left East Ayrshire and other councils with a bill to pay for your Government's commitments. Do you think that's a fair burden to lay at the feet of our councils?
Cabinet Secretary.
Local government has received a cash increase of £494 million in budget from the Scottish Government, which relates to a number of the issues that Mr Whittle has raised. And of course, local authorities are free to increase the council tax if they judge that appropriate to meet some of these costs. Of course, I remind Mr Whittle that a number of local authorities last year did not increase the council tax by the maximum amount that they were enabled to do, which must demonstrate that the government had fully funded local authority settlements. We are, of course, involved in a budget process, and I would also remind Mr Whittle that it's a bit rich for the Conservatives to raise any issue with me about local government funding when the Conservative government, the useless Conservative government that Mr Whittle supports in London, has delivered austerity on the people of Scotland for the last 10 years.
Question number 6, Miles Briggs.
Officer, to ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had regarding the future rebuild of the Edinburgh Cancer Centre.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
So NHS Lothian continue to engage with both the Cancer Policy Team and the Capital Planning Team at Scottish Government as NHS Lothian develop their initial agreement for the Edinburgh Cancer Centre. There was a recent site visit before Christmas to see the plans for the regional centre, but also to look at the enhancement work underway on the current site, which includes the haematology unit, a new linear accelerator, refurbishment of the cancer assessment unit, refurbishment of inpatient wards and development in Ward 1. And the Scottish Government has plans to invest £20 million to support the provision of cancer services in the safe environment until the new Edinburgh Cancer Centre is ready.
Miles Briggs.
The Cabinet Secretary for that answer. 2 years ago, I was told that the new cancer centre would be built in 2025. The Health Board are now telling me it's likely to be a decade before we see a new cancer centre. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm will patients across the south east of Scotland cancer region have to wait 5 years or 10 years for a new cancer centre?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, that would actually be a very appropriate question for NHS Lothian, who are the ones charged with this. Indeed, Mr Briggs, you know, you really need to understand how the health service works. You cannot have it both ways. And NHS Lothian are at level 4, as you know, something that you complain about. We are busy undertaking substantive work to ensure it has appropriate leadership, something you complain about. NHS Lothian are at stage 1 of their business case. That business case will come into Scottish Government. We will turn that around quickly, provided it is satisfactory. They will then move to outline business case, and as you know, outline business cases can take another 2 years to go through the process. So that is where we are. A timetable driven by NHS Lothian, not by this Government. Our commitment is clear. We are ready to support that. We are supporting the work that needs to be done in the interim in the existing cancer services to ensure that they are upgraded. And if you have further ideas and suggestions to make about how I can act to improve the performance of NHS Lothian, I am very happy to hear them.
Question number 7, John Mason.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what treatment programmes are available to help people addicted to gambling.
Sir Claire Hockey.
In common with other compulsive and addictive behaviours, problem gambling is addressed as part of wider health issues. Anyone who believes gambling is affecting their health or that of a loved one should consult their GP in the first instance. Out of hours, advice and support can be obtained from NHS 24 or from Breathing Space. The NHS Inform website also contains advice and signposting information. Where a person with addictive or compulsive behaviours is referred to a service for treatment, it may not be a specialist gambling addiction programme. The clinical team will work with that person to identify the issues or problems that are important to support the recovery and provide evidence-based treatment.
John Mason.
I thank the Minister for that reply. My understanding is that no Scottish Health Board has introduced a pre-planned treatment programme for gambling, and there is in Scotland no specialist clinic to treat them. Does the Minister think there's any need for such a facility?
Minister.
We will continue to consider evidence on what works best to address the issue of gambling harms in Scotland, and this includes work by the Scottish Public Health Network to develop and implement a whole population approach to prevention and reduction of gambling harms. This is currently being progressed with partners including NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, Glasgow City Council and the Health and Social Care Alliance Scotland. People with lived experience of gambling harms will be closely involved in co-producing a coordinated framework to underpin this work, and learning from this project will help inform the whole system approaches to addressing gambling harms in Scotland.
Thank you. Question number 8, David Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action it's taking to support the salmon industry following Brexit.
Cabinet Secretary Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, our vital farm salmon sector is a global success story, generating £540 million in GVA and offering over 10,000 jobs, often highly skilled, well-paid jobs, in some of our most remote communities. I will continue to support the salmon industry following Brexit, but the UK Government's lack of clarity on key issues, such as market access and certification, threatens this vital sector and damages investor confidence. The extra costs, extra risks and bureaucracy directly result from the UK Government's obduracy. They must heed the warning from the Scottish Salmon Producers Organisation, who have highlighted the huge unnecessary burdens that will result from the Brexit deal being pursued.
David Stewart.
Presiding Officer, last week the Scottish Salmon Producers Organisation warned that without a close relationship and tariff-free trade with the EU, the industry could see £9 million on costs and delays to the departure of fresh fish. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that trade barriers with our biggest trading partner will damage the sector and businesses and put jobs at risk in the Highlands and Islands?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, I very much agree with David Stewart as he sets out the position. The extra costs would result from the imposition of export health certificates and other bureaucracy. And let's be absolutely clear, there is no need for these at the moment at all. There would be no need for these if the UK Government agrees for dynamic alignment with the EU. They could remove the need for them. However, they have refused to do that. And on Monday, I asked George Eustace if the UK Government would pick up the tab for the extra £9 million or perhaps more that the trade body has estimated. Mr Eustace said that that would be a business cost. Business must pay this cost resultant directly from the policies pursued by the UK Government. So, Presiding Officer, here we have it. This is the first Boris Brexit bill. And the industry are going to have to pay it directly because of the UK Government's Brexit policies.
Question number 9, Angus Donald.
Thank you, President Officer. To ask the Scottish Government when the Scottish Local Authorities Remuneration Committee last met.
Cabinet Secretary Aileen Campbell.
The Scottish Local Authorities Remuneration Committee was established to advise Scottish ministers on the payment by local authorities of remuneration allowances and reimbursement of expenses incurred by local authority councillors. I understand the committee last met in February 2012 and was stood down in February 2013. Since 2017, councillors' pay has increased annually in line with the percentage increase in the median annual earnings of public sector workers in Scotland. Councillors' pay will rise from by 2.2% from April 1st, 2020.
Angus MacDonald.
Thank you. Thank you to the Cabinet Secretary for a reply. As a former councillor myself, I'm well aware of the hard work undertaken by the majority of councillors around the country. Clearly, not all councillors receive special responsibility allowance to top up their basic salaries, and full-time councillors on the basic level can sometimes struggle financially. Now, I understand this is a difficult ask in the current financial climate, and I'm aware of the 2.2% increase. However, will the Cabinet Secretary undertake to consider re-establishing SLARC with a view to bringing councillors' basic salary up to a level fit for purpose, which would make the prospect of serving the local communities post-2022 more rewarding and worthwhile, and be in line with the effort they put into the job?
Cabinet Secretary.
I absolutely recognise that councillors the length and breadth of the country work exceptionally hard and are dedicated to improving their communities, and the Scottish Government believes that everyone deserves to be fairly paid. And in terms of that fair work, we were delighted to lay amendments to increase flexibility available to local authorities when granting councillors paid leave of absence, something important in terms of encouraging councillors taking parental leave and encouraging other people to stand for council. As I said in my previous response, since 2017, councillors' pay has increased annually in line with the percentage increase in the median annual earnings of public sector workers in Scotland. I'm happy to meet with the member if he wants to discuss this further and outline some of the work that we're doing to support our councillors and our councils.
Thank you very much. And that concludes general questions. Now, before we turn to First Minister's questions, I'm sure members would like to join me in welcoming to our gallery Mr. Vegard Struman, Ambassador of Norway to the United Kingdom.